Let us first talk about the difference between various goods and how we can categorize them along the dimensions of rival and excludable. So what we have talked about so far in this class is mostly private goods. Private goods are both rival and excludable. Excludable in the sense that you can exclude somebody from using it. So here you can think about, for example, a sandwich that you are eating. And the sandwich is also rival in consumption. What this means is that if you are enjoying your sandwich, nobody else can, because you are using the good. Now, the topic of this lecture is going to be public goods, okay, mostly public goods. And public goods are not provided necessarily by the public, but are describing a characteristic of the good, in the sense that the good is non-rival and non-excludable. So here, the prime example would be, for example, national defense, because you cannot exclude somebody from being subject to national defense, or if you're living within a country, then you are subject to the country's national defense. And it is also non-rival in consumption, in the sense that if you have additional people coming or being born in the country, then it does not influence the consumption of the good national defense by anyone else. Now, there's also something called common good. Okay, so here the common good. So here the common good is rival but non-excludable. A good example here is public grazing lands. You cannot exclude farmers from using public grazing lands for example, for their cattle. But clearly, what one cow eats cannot be eaten by another cow. So here you have the situation where it's rival in consumption, but you cannot exclude somebody. This also leads to the concept that is called the tragedy of the commons. Okay, in the sense that this leads to an overuse of the goods. So you have the common goods are overused. Note that we will see that the public goods, like for example national defense, or you can think about lighthouses. I mean, you can think about lighthouses back in the old days, that they are underprovided. Okay, so not sufficient. So the market does not provide sufficient incentives for those goods to be provided. Now, the last good that I want to talk about are those club goods. So here, club goods are excludable but non-rival, in the sense that you can prevent people from using the good, but once the person is within the club, if you will, it does not influence to a certain degree the enjoyment or the consumption of others. So here you can think about, for example, a public swimming pool. That would be an example of a club good. Now let us look at why the private goods and public goods are different. And to do so, we are first going to look at the market for private goods. Okay? Now, suppose that you have two people, and they both have a demand function for sandwiches. Okay? So here I'm drawing two demand functions. So here, say this is Cullen, and this is Dina. And they both enjoy sandwiches. So we have the regular price and quantity diagram, and you have their demand function. Let's do it like this. And suppose that you have 2 points here. So at the price of $5, that Cullen demands one sandwich, and at the price of $3, Cullen demands 2 sandwiches. Now at the same price points, Dina demands say 0.5, just a half a sandwich, and at the price point of $3, she is just asking for 1 sandwich. Now, within the concept of a market for private goods, when you draw their aggregate demand function, so here you have the market demand, and think about here the market demand being for composed of Cullen and Dina. Then what happens is that at the price of $5 and $3, the demand is equal to 1.5 sandwiches, in the sense that you have the 1 sandwich from Cullen plus half the sandwich from Dina. And then at the price of $3, the total market demand is going to be 3. Okay? So that would something look like this. Okay? So what this means is that in the market for a private good, you are actually adding up the quantity across the people, or you are adding up the market demand functions. You are adding them up horizontally. Okay. What that means is that you're basically taking the one particular demand function plus the other demand function, and that gives you then the total demand function that is composed of the individual demand functions. So this is how you determine the market demand for a private good. And we have seen before that if you have the private market for a good, where you have the demand functions or the aggregate market demand function, then you also have the supply function. So here you have demand, you have the supply by the firms, and that the market equilibrium occurs when supply equals demand. So you have Q star and P star. Okay, and hence if you have a perfectly competitive market, then those goods you have consumer and producer welfare is maximized. Okay, remember that we have the consumer welfare, the consumer surplus up here, and that we have the producer surplus down here. Okay. Now let us look what happens if we are actually talking about a public good. Now let us analyze how this situation changes if we are talking about a public good. So assume that we have 2 consumers, A and B, and they both have a utility function that depends on Qt. Okay, and Qt is going to be the public good. And assume that for consumer A, it is 10 times Qt minus Qt squared. And for consumer B, that again, the utility of consumer B for the consumption of the public good can be written as 10 times Qt minus Qt squared divided by 2. Okay. Now note that Qt, okay, is the total amount of the public good provided, and that the that we have the quantity of B, and sorry, the quantity of A and the quantity of B that is provided. But note that if person A consumes the quantity A, then also person B can consume that same quantity. okay, or can consume that same unit. Now, suppose that the total cost function associated in this with this good is equal to so the total cost can be written as C QT is equal to 8 times Q, the quantity of A, plus the quantity of B. Okay. Now, when you use calculus, and I'm going to skip this, then what you're going to get is what are called the first order conditions for optimality. And this is when you are maximizing the utility of both people combined, of both consumers combined. Then you find that the optimality can be described as 20 minus 2 times QA plus QB is equal to 8. And hence, the optimal quantity, or the welfare maximizing quantity of the good, is equal to 4. So that is the optimal and efficient optimal and efficient quantity. And again, it is important to realize that both people can consume 4 units of this good, because it is non-rival in consumption, which is the key assumption about a public good, or what the key characteristic of what describes a public good. Now, let us see what happens if we are not maximizing the overall utility of both people combined, but if those 2 individuals are left to their own choices. Okay, how much of that public good are they going to provide? So here, think about that the marginal benefit of A is equal to 10 minus 2 times Q. This is a direct derivation of the utility function, and that the marginal benefit of B is equal to 10 minus Q. You can think about those marginal benefit functions as the as demand functions. Okay. Now, when we are going to draw them, so we have, let's call this the marginal benefit. Let's call this for A. And let's do the marginal benefit for B as well. Here we have the quantity of this good. Then for A, we have something like starts at 10, goes all the way to 5. And for consumer B, it starts also at 10, but goes all the way to 10. Now, we have seen before, if we are looking at the market demand, for a private good, sorry, this is not P, but this is Q. Then for a private good, we are adding up horizontally, whereas for public good, we are adding vertically. So what this means is the following. So here, let us just look at the marginal benefit for person B. So it starts at 10 and goes all the way to 10. But since this is a public good, that if you're thinking about a particular consumption of the good, then it is not only, the benefit does not only go to one person, but it goes to all people. So what that means is that we now can add the demand function or the marginal benefit function of person A into this graph, but vertically. So suppose that we have 5 here, okay? So that would correspond to this, and then we would have 20 here. So we are basically adding up the benefit here, okay? Then since we know from the cost function before that the marginal cost for this good is equal to 8, then we have 8 here. So the marginal cost is actually constant. Okay, so here this is the marginal cost. And then we get the solution that we have before from calculus, or where I skipped calculus, that here the optimal provision of the good is equal to 4. Okay? However, let's see what happens if those people are left to their individual decisions. So here in this case, you would have the marginal cost at 8 for consumer A, and you would have the marginal cost at 8 for the consumer B as well. And then, so what this means is that think about consumer B setting their marginal benefit, so 10 minus Q, equal to the marginal cost, which is equal to 8. And hence you see that consumer B is going to purchase 2 units. If you do the same for consumer A, where consumer A sets their marginal benefit of 10 minus 2Q equal to 8, then you see that the consumer A would just purchase 1 unit. Now, you may think that here that a total of 1 plus 3 units are purchased. Okay, sorry, 1 plus 2 units are purchased for a total of 3. But this is actually not true, because this is a public good. So what this means is that if consumer A purchases 1 unit, then consumer B only has to purchase, since consumer B wants to consume 2 units, then consumer B can consume the 1 unit from A and would only purchase an additional 1. So we would end up with a total quantity of 2. You can also think about this, that if consumer B purchases first 2 units, okay, then consumer A does not have to purchase any units, because one of those units, the 1 unit that consumer A wants to consume, is provided by consumer B. So that's the issue with public good, that you have an under provision. So the optimal provision here would be 4. That would be the welfare maximizing provision. But if you are leaving the consumers to their individual choices, then you only end up with a suboptimal provision of the public good of 2.